hell happened?
A bomb, I think.
I don't know why you came all the way up here.
There's nothing left.
There are people out there. People worth saving.
Most people had finally given up hope.
What's going on? Oh my God!
It's very exciting to be able to come back to the theaters to see A Quiet Place 2 because it was always designed for a theatrical experience.
It's such an inspired sequel. The world expands in this one because they have to venture out.
The second movie is much bigger. It's a much scarier movie.
It's a horror movie. You want to watch it in the dark. Jump and leap and gasp together. I'm really excited for you guys to see it.
Hey everybody, I'm Barnes, this is Noble, and thank you for coming to our Q&A. We started this bookstore. I'm John Krasinski, and this is Jonny Cournoyer, and this is a very, very special book to me. It's basically the brainchild of this man right here. He is our stills photographer on both Quiet Place 1 and Quiet Place 2. And a stills photographer is someone who's basically documenting the whole making of the movie. And what I personally love most about Johnny's photography is a lot of times stills photographers take pictures of things that you will see verbatim in the movie. And Johnny takes pictures of a new perspective, almost like a William Claxton kind of vibe of being around and a part of the movie rather than just shooting the movie as you're going to see it in the movie theaters. And so when he had all these photos, I should say, come on, you got to correct me on that. Photographs, these works of art, I thought the only thing it deserves is an art book. And no kidding, our favorite books, some of our favorite books are by Rizzoli. And so when they asked or called and said that they wanted to do this, I think we passed out for a full 10 seconds and then 20 seconds. Yeah. And then tried to be professional and said, yeah, I guess that would be okay. And then I immediately went and slept with all my Rizzoli books in my bed. So
yes, it's a huge honor. I mean, it's the tippity top for us to be on Rizzoli family, and then to have this actual object now that we worked so hard on the last couple of years just staring at us now. It's pretty amazing, and I can't wait for you all to have your copy. Thank you for your support, and I don't know, I'm still kind of in awe looking at it myself.
It is. I just find myself staring at it. It's also weird to see it in the wild because it's only been in, email format, going back and forth, sharing notes to each other, and then to actually be able to hold it, just give me a second, okay? I just need to take a second. By the way, this is the book that we're talking about, everybody. Let's get the glare off. Let me tilt it the right way.
Yeah. The sheen.
The sheen. Oh, perfect.
But yeah, there's a handful of shots that you might have seen from the publicity of both films, but the bulk of it are shots that never made the light of day for no terrible reason. It just wasn't a marketing shot. Our whole approach to picking these photos was to create a story within a story, show the making of it, be more of a contemplation on the film, and gave us the chance to show these shots that are a little bit more maybe on the arty side or a little bit less marketing side, and
feels more in the family. I think that the success of the first movie was so unbelievable, and to us it was more emotional than just the success of the movie, because we couldn't believe people actually saw the movie, because it felt like we were on some weird beautiful summer camp or something. And so these are the pictures of our said summer camp as we were shooting these two movies. I think we have questions from folks out there. Do we? We do? Oh, perfect. Yeah. Great.
So Dana from Jupiter, Florida wants to know, how well you guys collaborate together? Because you've done multiple projects together over the years. So what's the magic to getting you guys to work together so well?
Money. If he will do anything if you pay him enough. Jonny, it's never enough. Jonny is the dearest of friends that you can have. And so long before we were working together on set, we were working together in any sort of conversation of art. He is my art guru. He is my art spirit animal. I basically would just have Far Side cartoons on my wall if it wasn't for him, which, by the way, would be amazing.
He did, though.
But he cultured me up a little bit. And truly, my favorite part of any sort of job has been getting to experience it all with him and being around to go to all these amazing places, have all these amazing adventures. But no adventure is worthwhile if you don't have someone to share it with and talk about it with. So that's what's so great. He shoots his photos the same way he is as a friend. It's just very honest, very genuine, wears his heart on his sleeve. And I think these photos really feel like he was not only a part of the shooting family, but actually a part of the shot. He feels like he always finds a way to get into the fabric of every single set piece. And I will tell you, every single member of the crew gave him the greatest compliment, which is, when did you get here? Everyone always turns and is like, how long have you been here? And he's been there for 40 minutes shooting this whole scene. He's like a wonderful shadow that just disappears.
I'm a shadow of myself. Yes, it's true. No, that's the biggest compliment for a set photographer, for all you set photographers out there. Know this already. For those of you who want to be set photographers, to be stealth and to have somebody say, I didn't even know you were there. You can stand wherever you want after this point, because it's the best thing you can do is not be seen. And the worst thing you can do is get in the way of the camera crew and the actors and whatnot. But if you're telling your own story from your own angle and you're kind of in the shadows, you're gonna get some great stuff. So, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing when I first started A Quiet Place. Like I was a little bit out of my league, to be honest, but I just harnessed fine art. I harnessed my fine art background, and they just trusted me. Paramount and John trusted me with my eye, and they just wanted me to tell the story how I saw it on the ground in the field, and not just grab what the camera was trying to grab. But I think it's to answer that question too, why we collaborate so well is because we know each other so well. And there's so many tense moments on set at times, and it's hard making a movie, and it's so many hours, and there's night shoots. And, we were both, I wasn't sure what I was doing at first. And I know you were under a ton of pressure being on that horse, in that saddle for the first time. And there was days where, we would just kind of look at each other and go, mm-hmm. And that's all you kind of need to know that you're doing good. You're on the right path. I felt like it on day one that we were tapped into something.
He did. He called it day one of shooting.
Called it day one.
He said, this is going to be something special. And I said, it'll go direct to DVD. He said, I promise you it won't. And he was right. I was wrong.
Laserdisc is what it was.
That's right. You did say Laserdisc.
I always knew these were going to be special movies. And regardless of what the success was in the box office, but they were real art pieces. They were coming from an absolute place of genuine parenting and love and family. And, you felt that on set every day.
Thank you, Dana.
So now we're going to move on to James Murphy from New York City, and sort of in the same vein. What was your process for selecting the photos that would be in the book? And were there ones that you felt strongly should be in? Were there ones that you cut and argued over? How did you make the final cut of images in the book?
That's a great question. I mean, this guy had so many great photos. It was extremely hard to choose. I think that the first and foremost, my gut was to trust his gut. that he knew what he had. He remembered those moments in the movie, in the shooting of it, and which ones he really, really fell in love with. And I said it was really important for this book to really be his blood, sweat, and tears. And so I said, which ones are your favorite? And then he sent me a stack of all his favorite photos. And then we chose together. And then it was about, you know, what did I know it sounds corny, but what did the book want it to be? You know what I mean? We started putting a narrative together of all these photos. And some of the photos, even some that we really loved, just didn't fit in this narrative that was forming by itself as you start putting these all together. And then once we got cast interviews and crew interviews and all these wonderful things, that informed which photos go in as well. And so it was really, again, just like the movie, you know, the movie starts to become a thing that tells you what it can and cannot take, no matter what you want to put into it. And I think that's what happened to the book. Once we had all this in, the narrative was very clear. And then it was which pictures or which photos, I always say pictures, photos, best serve the book and the story.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started laying them out, I come from a visual way of arranging imagery. So I just was starting to collage and put a gallery together of shots that I thought kind of flow together, you know, whether it's color-wise or feeling-wise or what. And, you know, the book was probably a little bit Pink Floyd-y. And then he came in and, as the director, came in and really just tweaked it so that there was actual storyline thread. And I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. It's beautiful. And the book took on its own little life form. It really did.
And speaking more towards the actual art of the photography, Johnny Therese from Broomfield, Colorado wants to know, how did you capture the tension of the silence in the photography? Was it through the lighting, the composition? Which elements really helped convey the silence and the dread and
That's a really good question.
Emotion of it all?
That's a very good question. I think if I had to pick one attribute, it's just all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes, all in the facial expression. When Emily or Noah was, you just knew when they were making that face that said it all. Of course, I mean, every set was beautiful. Every set was a work of art to shoot. So, and it was, you know, every set had that same thread of silence and treachery. And so that was easy to capture. I knew that the background was going to be there to kind of give that sense of silence. But I think it's all in the eyes. You know, even in the cornfields, which are blowing in the wind and, you know, making their own little rustling noise, in theory, you just see, you know, Noah's eyes peeking through, or Millie's eyes peeking through that corn, kind of staring. And that, to me, that just said silence.
Absolutely.
Which is actually a great lead into our next question from Anthony from Schenectady, New York, who wants to know what went into the decision for scouting the location. Why'd you pick where you picked?
It's a great question. Weird answer. I found the house on Zillow in Quiet Place 1. I knew exactly, when I was writing, I knew exactly the house I had in my mind. And I genuinely just went through Zillow all in upstate New York and just went over and over and over until one day I came across this listing and it was the house. I just knew it. And one of the things we needed was a house that had a barn. Obviously, we could have built both of those things as a set, but we really wanted it to feel organic and we wanted it to feel like it had been around for a long time. So these were original houses and an original barn. I think it was actually like a numbered barn.
Yeah,
it was like a numbered historic barn. We weren't actually allowed to touch the barn.
I touched it.
But we were allowed to build onto it to do other things like, well, I don't want to give away the movie, but things happened to the barn and we weren't allowed to do it to the real barn. But I found it on Zillow. And I think for me, once we had that set, then the surrounding area became its own character. And believe it or not, as far as most movies, you shoot your interiors on a stage or something like that. And we actually went to a nearby horse farm that was just down the road and got the city to okay it as an actual stage. So from now on, these people who own this horse farm can now legally shoot movies in there as an acknowledged stage, which I think is just so cool.
Absolutely. So touching on a little bit of the writing and directing part, Brandon from Midville, Georgia wants to know what the most surprising challenge was in directing the movie to you, John, and what was easier than you thought it would be, or what was the hardest part to overcome during directing for both films?
Well, I think it's the idea of the movie is a high wire act. I don't think anybody knows exactly how to do something that is, a silent film, a film where the majority of communication is in sign language, a story where you're only with 4 characters for the majority of it. It was something that we all believed was special, that we all believed was unique, but it was certainly in directing very scary because you wanted to pull off what you knew in your heart could work, but it's a high wire act and you didn't know which way it was going to go. And I was always really scared. And I know that there's a lot of people much more successful and much more experienced than me that have similar answers. But I personally, looking up as much as I do to someone like Steven Spielberg, hearing him in interviews say that he goes into work not quite knowing how he's going to pull it off. It really is when all the magic happens. You work on instinct. And a lot of the times, I would say most of the scenes that I had any pre-planning never really went the way I wanted until they basically weren't working, and then we pulled something out brand new. So there is a sense of improv that really, really helps. And I think that it was the key to getting that organic feel of something special, because you really had to shoot what was exactly happening there, not what you had pre-planned.
Great. And then the next question, probably a very unfair one, but
good. Let's do the unfair questions.
Leslie from Columbus, Ohio wants to know for both of you, what your favorite scenes in the movie are. And for both movies.
Oh, both movies.
Both movies.
If you can talk about the second movie yet.
I don't know. I can say 2 quick first movie scenes that were my favorite, and then I'll think about the second film really quick. I will never forget, and this is another reason I got into the bathroom where Emily's character was giving birth. And it was literally, like you said, an old historic house. The bathroom was just the tiniest little room you could squeeze into. And there was, I think, 5 or 6 of us at the most that could get in there. And just from, my camaraderie with the camera crew, and I probably gave them a lot of beer later, it let me in. And then gave me a tiny little sliver. So I was in there shooting for that. So it was how many takes she did, 3 or 4, I can't remember. But I remember the first one. I'll never forget the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in that room had chills. It was an unbelievable experience to witness a master class in acting. And it was so real. We were all just really just shaken.
I remember that day very well because a week before we started shooting, I actually was looking for my editing suites. And so we were here in New York City before I went upstate. And who was editing the floor above me was a man named Rob Marshall, who directed a movie called Mary Poppins. And so I saw him and I said to him, Rob, I'm so excited to shoot. And he said, oh, when are you shooting? And I said, next week. And he said, that's so great. You're going to see how good she is. And I said, no, I know she's the best. And he's like, no, you'll see. And I said, no, I know she's my wife. I'm a big fan of hers. And he went, nope, you're going to see why you're such a big fan of hers. You're going to see why you think she's such a great actress. You've never seen it yourself. And I did in that scene. It was probably like the 4th or 5th day shooting. When she did, because there was only 1 take of the actual wide shot, and then we did coverage of it for a couple other things. But that first and only take, when she let rip and the entire crew just went completely silent and there was nothing else to say. Yeah. So I think I just went, that's lunch? Yeah. Question mark? Like, I don't know what we do after that. That was the biggest of all mic drops. So that was certainly one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
And the first one. I'd say the second movie, there's so many great scenes, but for me, technically, selfishly as a director, I think I'm most proud of the car scene with Emily that you can see parts of in the trailer. That's all done in 1 take. It was certainly inspired by some of my favorite films, but that specifically, we had really been so admiring of Children of Men. And I think Alfonso's a genius in everything he does, but that shot in Children of Men that they had in the car, I loved so much. And I just thought, let's play with that idea even more. And the idea that is all 1 shot, everything that's happening to her and to the car is happening right there. So it was one of those shots where the entire crew brought their A game, not that they always didn't, but it was one of those things that every single person participated in that shot. We rehearsed it for 3 weeks. We had prepared it for 6 weeks. And on the day I said to Emily, we can do a rehearsal run so that you know what's going to happen. And she said, absolutely not. Put me in the car because I want it to happen organically. I want to live it for the first time. So what's in the movie is the first time that my wife was in a car with all those things happening to her and having a bus run at her at 45 miles an hour, which I don't know she was quite aware of. So I remember as I shut the door thinking, did I just put my marriage on the line?
You did.
I did. Yep. Perfect.
I just have to say one other little tiny scene, if that's okay. Because in the first one, when Lee was saying goodbye to, I'm just going to say, no, I can't think right now about character names. Marcus, when you were saying goodbye to Marcus, in the, giving him the flashlight in the barn, it was a very red scene, and it was this extremely high tense scene. And you were just having to say, basically, go save your family, but also possibly goodbye forever.
Yeah.
And I just remember I was back a bit, and I had
a horse stall.
Nice shot. Yes, it was a horse stall. And I got teared up. And it's not necessarily because of the story. I knew the story. I knew Noah was going to be fine. He's just off camera, probably thinking about Crafty. But it was just him. And, we both became fathers in our at a similar kind of time. So I've seen what kind of father he's blossomed into. And it just choked me up so much because it was just him as a father trying to, protect his child and also having to possibly say goodbye to him forever.
Yeah.
It's like, I still get upset about it because it was just so real. Like he tapped into it.
Oh,
so
that's awesome. I remember that really well because that was one of those moments where I had no idea where Johnny was. And he was like, man, that was so great. I said, oh, cool. Were you at the monitors? And he was like, dude, I was 2.5 feet from your face. And I was like, what? And then he showed me the picture and it looked like he could have reached out and touched me. I'm glad he didn't.
I tried to, but
because I was doing my best work.
It was amazing. It really was. It's a beautiful scene.
Yeah. So speaking about that emotional nature of taking the photos for that. So I guess it's kind of a two-part question from Madison in Galloway, Ohio, of, which parts of the movie were hard to shoot. And I'm going to say, physically demanding, hard to shoot, as well as emotionally hard to shoot.
That's a great question. Two different things. I think the physical stuff that's hard to shoot was, for me, it was any of the action stuff was really interesting. In the second movie, there's some rain work, and rain work's always a blast. Everybody loves that. I lost track of the fact that my wife was getting rained on with freezing rain. And I remember it was probably the only time she ever put her foot down, literally and figuratively. I was shooting her foot coming into the shot. And I was just so nerding out on how this, because in my head I had edited it and I said, oh, it's going to start with her foot. And she said, how many more of these are we going to do? And I was like, oh, so good. A couple more and we'll get it. She goes, you got one. Okay. You got one. Then we're going to pack it up. And I remember the best part was I was turning to the crew every take going, we're so close. And I could see the crew being like, no, wait, we should stop. And I realized later that I had thought the water was heated for my wife. Very much was not. And we were shooting in Buffalo in the freezing elements. And so I basically almost gave my wife hypothermia. That was physically challenging. Emotionally challenging, bar none, was putting a baby in a box. I don't recommend it for anybody out there. It is jarring, and I am still in therapy for it. The scene in the first movie, again, you write this thing thinking it would be really awful to watch on screen, and then you realize you have to perform it. I'll never forget holding an actual baby. And I remember the parents being so nice and so down for whatever we were going to do. And I don't think they really knew that I was going to put a lid on the box. So just so you know, we had, it never fully closed. So there was air around it, but it did sound-wise lock out. So I remember I had this tiny child that had to be 3 months.
3 months,
maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember pretending to be scared and whatever, but all I was focused on was the baby. And like Johnny said, we had kids around the same time. And so our kids at home, or our youngest, was very young. And I remember putting the baby in the box and it was crying so loud. And then you put the lid on the box and it was like, and it just stopped. And I slowly walked away. And if the frame was here, as my face got out, I was like, cut. And we ran in and pulled the box off. And I went behind the set and fully started shaking. And it was one of the most viscerally emotional, eviscerating moments I've ever had, let alone on set. And I'll never forget, Johnny saw how upset I was, came down, and he said, are you okay? And I said, I don't know why I feel like I can't stop crying. And he goes, because you put a baby in a box. And I was like, right. That might have something to do with it.
Yeah. That baby was probably 6 months old when we opened the lid. I mean, it
was like a time travel machine.
It had lived a lot already.
I always think about those parents, like, what happens when the kid's like, really? I'm in Quiet Place? Show it to me. And they're like, you let that happen?
Residuals.
And what about you? What were some of the hard shots to get, along set, and what was tough for you to maybe shoot?
Gosh, I think when I just think of difficult locations, the coal mine on the second film, which we were at, I think we were
Steel mill,
sorry, but it felt like a coal mine.
It did.
You were breathing in black substance of some sort. But that was 3 days in 98-degree Buffalo in the summer, and everybody was just sort of hanging on by a thread.
Well, nobody had been to the mill in a very long time, and so I think you're right. There was a whole area we were shooting that was coal, and basically the ground was all this black dust that had never been stepped on in 20 or 30 years since the mill closed. And now 200 crew members were walking back and forth, and it just slowly, like almost like pig pen in the Peanuts, just this like dust started to grow from the ground and go into everybody's lungs. And I remember people were going home and just like wiping their noses and just black coming out for days. And I was like, oh, that can't be great for anybody.
Those were tears. Yeah.
Those were tears.
So I think we have our final question coming up, and it is from Pat and Sonia in Connecticut. And it's a broad question, but who are your inspirations? Who really inspired you to, go down this road for these films, and get behind camera? Like, give us the origin story.
Well, I'm sure he has a whole different set of inspirations, but I think weirdly, like we were saying in the beginning, we share such an artistic sensibility with any visual medium, whether it's paintings or, music, photography, music. And so for me, there's a through line and a amalgamation of a lot of different inspirations musically and art wise, and that sort of made their way into this movie. But certainly from a filmmaking technique, I mean, Steven Spielberg was, to me, he's an imagination factory. I think that his movies for me not only transported me, the theater experience was a sanctuary. That's why we're so thrilled to be coming out in theaters. But I think his storytelling was so, like we were talking about, so genuinely emotional, even though the conceit of things such as E.T., that a child finds an alien, could have been just a sort of fun, wild ride. And instead it's an emotional odyssey that is so beautifully well done. So I certainly had Steven Spielberg in mind in a lot of different ways, but the movies I watched, I'd never watched horror before I directed this. I was such a scaredy cat. I never watched scary movies. And then now if you see my iTunes library, you'd think I have a problem. I've just seen every horror movie under the sun, I think. But my inspirations for the movie were the classic horror movies. So it was Jaws, it was Aliens, it was Rosemary's Baby, it was all Hitchcock, all that stuff, because I knew the sort of tension and suspense was all going to be from those types of films. So, and then visually on the first movie and then leading into the second movie, I wanted it to be a Western, but I wanted it to be a modern Western. So I was watching a lot of No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood. Those were the two movies I was really basing a lot of our look and tone on. That's pretty much.
Myself, I mean, years ago when I started doing this for a career, I didn't even know what a set photographer was when you told me, hey, you'd be good at this. So I don't really have any set photographer heroes, but I do have a lot of, like I said, art world is where I kind of came out of. So like photographers like Robert Frank and Walker Evans and people like that I've really admired and tried to throw that kind of look into the still world, because I think it's that this role is changing. I don't think you always have to try and snag that same shot that the camera is seeing, because you're never going to get it anyway. I think they want you to start telling different stories and showing different angles, and it's almost like reportage in the field, reporting back to the studio what you kind of see and how you see it. And creatively, or inspiration-wise, those kind of figures out of the art world and some painters is how I see color. And I'm a real sucker for post-impressionism, so always look for those kind of scenes on set and really try to amp the volume up on those. But yeah, it's just like I said, in music, film, art, writing, fiction, we just always kind of try to keep that thread going of truth and history and sort of just, hitting the road, kind of exploring.
Hitting the road.
Yeah.
So guys, this was such a great conversation. Unless there's something else you want to tell all our fans out there about.
Yeah, I've got another 45 minutes. Do you? You got another couple things we want to talk about. Oh, we're done. Oh, we're wrapping it up. Perfect. Thank you guys all for coming and listening to us ramble on about this book and these movies, and so appreciate you buying the book.
Yes.
It is so special. Like Johnny said, it's kind of a time capsule, not only capturing the movie, but for me, the experience, and I'm very, very lucky to have it.
I mean, it's still a dream for me. I can't even believe it's sitting there. So it'd be an honor for it to have it be in your room as well. So thank you.
The people that are left, what they've become, they're not the kind of people worth saving.
Cillian Murphy plays Emmett. His talent is so good at all times. We couldn't wait to have him jump in our world. The beauty of Cillian's character was that there's so much loss in his life. He doesn't feel the need to be a part of any community.
He is shut down, unwilling to help, frightened, fearful, done.
I don't know why he came all the way up here.
There's nothing left.
That encounter they have in that tiny little space is incredibly charged and incredibly intense.
I can't help you.
Please.
He's actually a representation of the rest of the world. There's a darkness to him, and there's a fear level to him that makes him unpredictable.
You don't know, do you? I do.
That's what we're trying to create. That the audience goes, oh my God, what would I do if I was in that situation? I was just blown away by it.
Quiet Place Part 2 picks up right where Quiet Place Part 1 left off. The idea of these kids and this family dealing with their safety net being taken from them.
Evelyn is now a single parent, newborn baby, the barn's burnt down, the house is destroyed, and she's out there on her own and she has to protect these children.
They are forced to go out into the world and see how other people lived. So they literally leave the path of safety and go into the unknown.
It's harrowing, it's terrifying, but at the core of it, it's a very human story.
I don't know why he came all the way up here.
There's nothing left.
Please. She's just trying to keep everybody alive and discovers that there's other people out there, and the world changes in an instant. There are people out there worth saving.
You don't know, do you? I do.
We answered all those questions that the audience was asking about day one, especially how did this all start? Every step is much more treacherous.
It definitely ratchets up the tension, and you know they're not safe.